I'm Robert Mess from the World Football News Network, and today we have a very, very special guest, Joshua Yaro, the center back for the Philadelphia Union. He is a Georgetown alum, Kate School in Santa Barbara, California. He is also a Right to Dream graduate. Joshua, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm very, very good.
Good.
I wanted to have you on today, not so much to talk about soccer, but the journey you've been on from Ghana to the United States.
Yeah.
So let's start in Ghana since you are from there.
Yeah.
What was your soccer experiences like as a kid?
If you know culturally about a little bit about Ghana and how sports operate in Ghana, you know that there's pretty much only one sport that exists, which is football or soccer. And so I grew up playing soccer my whole life, and I played for a club team when I was young, and then later on I joined the Right to Dream Academy, which is one of the most prestigious academies in Africa, and establishing itself as one of the best academies in the world, and so I got to join the academy where I got a lot of good training because there were a lot of good coaches and a lot of good players around me, and so I played there until my sophomore year of high school when I later transferred to the Kate School in Santa Barbara.
So, growing up as an African footballer, what challenges did you face as far as competition in whether it be your club team or any type of competitive team you're on? What challenges or, so to speak, adversity did you face growing up, fighting for positions or fighting for spots?
Yeah, obviously when you have a country like Ghana where soccer is the main thing, you tend to have a lot of a good player pool, and which makes the competition a lot better. And so it was tough, both for club and when I later on joined Right to Dream. It was really tough to get in because everyone wants to play, but limited resources, and everyone is fighting for that limited resource. So to be able to establish yourself as a good player and be able to either get a club team or an academy team, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of effort to make it. Just because, and I always say, I've asked this a lot of times, and I always say, a lot of my friends, a lot of players that have the talent, but it's tough for them to develop it because of the lack of infrastructure or just not having the opportunity to be in an environment where they're going to flourish. And so the challenge for me was competing against everyone else because there were a lot of people fighting for the same spot, and being in the right environment and having the right infrastructure to develop myself as a player.
When you moved to the United States, you moved to Santa Barbara, the Kate School, and what was that transition like, leaving your family and just transitioning to a completely different country that we have here in the United States?
Yeah,
how did you feel?
It's a tough transition, especially at that age. And when you leave your family and you travel half across the world, it's never easy. But again, I had a support system here already that gave me all the help that I needed, that were willing to go the extra mile to make my stay at Kate School and my stay in the United States pleasant. And so it still doesn't make it easy, but it softens it a little bit to have a support system that provided with everything that I needed. And it was tough at first. My first year was all about trying to figure things out and trying to not fit in, but figure out my environment and who I am and how I was going to be able to thrive in such an environment. And so, but after my first year was a little bit better. I got used to how things are done here, and knew exactly what was expected of me and what I had to do, and so that made things somehow easier and manageable. But even not today, I still struggle with being away from home, because home is home will always be home, and no matter how far away or how long you move from home, it will always be the place that you say your roots, and the place that you always remember growing up in. And so it's still tough for me sometimes, but I mean that's life. You got to move away from home sometimes to achieve your dreams. I think that's exactly what I've tried to do over the past years.
Moving to the Kate School in Santa Barbara, school was very important to you.
Yeah.
And why was your education why was it such a priority? Because, I mean, you get these typical American athletes in college, they don't tend to care about their schoolwork because it's all about practice and getting better at whatever sport they're in. But you seem to focus on your education and how well you do in school, and maintaining your GPA. I wonder what goes through your mind when you think of your future education, or your education to get you to your future.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I grew up with both my parents used to be teachers, and so that's a big factor in how I've lived my life. And my mom especially didn't really want me playing soccer because she thought that would take me away from my education. And so to be able to play, I had to assure her that I was going to maintain my education. I was going to go to college and do all the stuff that she wanted. And so I think, well, that's what I've always told myself, and I think that stuck with me throughout the years. And I also realized that soccer, or an athlete's life's fun. You play for a few years, and when I'm done playing, I'm still going to be fairly young. And what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Yes, I can work in sports. That's what I can do without having an education. But I think having an education to me, it's really powerful because it gives me the ability to be able to pick and choose what I want to do in life, and to be able to just have the education and the power to think and to kind of know other things besides what I've done my whole life. Because who knows, when I'm done playing, I might end up working in sports, I might not. And when I decide I don't want to work in sports, I want to have some other options or some other things that I could do. And I think with education that I've gotten, that will provide me with a platform to do other things besides. So
with with your education and how well you did at the school in Santa Barbara, that got you into many different colleges.
Yeah.
And your recruitment process to come play college soccer is amazing to me, because Georgetown wasn't even on your list. So my question is, what did they say to you to get you to consider them and ultimately choose them to play college soccer?
Yeah, I mean, I went into the process with an open mind, because I did realize that, sometimes the plans we have in life, it's not how life is going to, or how we have life planned, it's not how it's going to play out. And so I remember when I first got a message from my coach, Brian Weiss, I thought, well, I'm kind of close making my decision, and we're coming in a little bit late, but anyways, why not consider it? I mean, and so I did, and I was told when I was making a decision with everyone around me, you just keep an open mind, because you never know where you're going to end up going until you make your decision. Don't shout any school out. And so I kept that in mind, and I think I did that fairly well. And I remember when I visited Georgetown, and first met the coaching staff, because a lot of college coaches, when you meet them and you talk to them, everyone will try to sell you on their school, and how amazing the program is, and how great the school is, and how it's the best school in the world, which is not a wrong thing to do, because that's their job. They have to try to get you to come to their school. But when I visited Georgetown, I spoke to the head coach, Brian Weiss. He asked me which other schools I was looking at, so I told him, and he goes, well, all those schools are really nice schools, and wherever you go, you're going to do really well. And I was like, that's it? You're not going to try to, convince me to come to your school? And he never did that. I mean, he genuinely wanted the best for me and wanted me to make a decision I was comfortable with, and he was really actually supportive. And I think even if I had chosen to go to a different school, he would have still wished me the best and all that. So just seeing him being really selfless, I thought, hey, this is someone I would want to play for because he's going to want the best for me and he's going to look out for my best interest. And so, I committed to Georgetown. When I got to Georgetown, it's the same exact person he was and the same exact stuff he did, and really did everything he could in his power to help me and to see me succeed.
So it's kind of swooped in at the end and said, hey, we want you to come here, but, ultimately what's best for you is what's best for you.
Yeah. And I really appreciated that. He was really honest in the process, and sometimes you just meet people and you can trust them. I think he's one of those people that you meet him and he talks to me like, wow, he's really smart, he's really genuine, and he's really just a caring person besides being a good coach. And so I really liked that about him, and I ended up saying, oh, I'm going to Georgetown. Plus, it's a great school and it's in a great location. What's there not to like about the school? But for me, it was also, again, I was finding the right environment. I think after meeting the coaches, that suddenly did it for me.
And when you got to Georgetown, you decided to go with a double major.
Yeah.
And you went, and correct me if I'm wrong, but government and medical anthropology.
Yes, government anthropology, yeah.
The anthropology thing struck my interest.
Yeah.
I heard interviews of you saying maybe one day you want to go back and help in the government in Ghana. And I understood that with the government major. But what's your interest with medical anthropology?
Well, medical anthropology, because when I was young, I really wanted to be a doctor, but I realized that was not going to be possible for me. So medical anthropology, I think, is the closest I can get to working in medicine. Because it's just, culturally, it's really tough. Because I remember when I first got here, like, for instance, if I say I'm ill, when I say that at home, my parents or anyone around me would know, okay, he's not sick, he doesn't have any diseases, he's not cool. They know the difference between being ill and being sick. And that's, culturally, it's really tough, especially when you have the biomedical system where everything it's based on science. It's really easy for an American, to explain that. But when you go to other cultures where biomedicine is not the main system, or biomedicine is used with other systems or belief systems and other ways of treatment, how do you explain that to a Western doctor that only believes in biomedicine? And so trying to bridge that gap culturally between people, I think it's really powerful and helping, people at opposite sides understand each other, and so that the doctor can better assist the patient can better understand what the doctor is saying. I think it's really powerful. And so that's something that I'm interested in doing one day, just looking at how what people see as being ill or being sick, and how do they receive treatment. And it sounds simple, but there's been a lot of issues where a lot of immigrants get to places and misunderstandings between the doctors, because both parties don't understand each other. And that's what I want to do one day, kind of be the middle guy to be able to explain things to both parties and kind of bring or resolve a situation. But again, yeah, as I said, medical anthropology, I think that's the closest I will ever get working in medicine. So hopefully if it works out one day, great, I'd love it. But if not, I think there are a lot of things out there for me that I'm interested in that could also work out.
It would probably work very well since you have lived in the United States for,
right,
several years now.
Yeah.
And with your background in Ghana, in sorts of so you're an ambassador,
Right.
so you know both the cultures, maybe not as well as your home culture, but you can bridge the gap enough, and
Right.
that's what we need around the world.
Yeah.
For countries that may not be able to afford the medicine we have here
Right.
in the United States and larger countries like that,
Yeah.
or that use cultural, ways to treat people when they're sick. So
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing. It's a very overlooked thing,
Yeah.
and I applaud you for doing this.
Thank you. I mean, and just in general, I mean, it's culturally. I mean, every culture is different, and all anthropologists, what they're good at, it's being able to understand different cultures. You might not necessarily agree with it, but they just don't look at someone else's culture and say, "Oh my God, that's stupid. Why would they do that?" It's nothing is stupid in someone else's culture, no matter how ridiculous it might look, or if you think it doesn't align with your culture or it just doesn't look right. It's not stupid. It's their way of living, and being able to understand that, I think a lot of people don't, and that causes a lot of friction. Not just in in medicine, but in government and in every aspect of our lives. And so, having someone that could understand different cultures and be able to explain it to people that don't, I think it's helpful in our everyday lives.
Yeah, that's a great thing, and I wish you all the well after your playing career with that.
Thank you.
Switching gears to more your performance on the field.
Yeah.
And just I notice something every time I watch you. You're always incredibly calm and poised. What gives you that sense of peace and confidence that you can handle situations on the field?
I think. I mean, when I was young, I was always super nervous before games, and I think as a result, I was making mistakes that I could prevent, and I grew out of it. I mean, before MLS games, I think a lot of players get this where you kind of like, kind of a little bit nervous, but once the play kicks off, it totally goes away. And so I've tried because I found out that when I'm rushed, when I put a lot of pressure on myself, I tend to make a lot of mistakes, and mistakes are part of the game. And so I realized, well, yeah, everyone makes mistakes, and so why not just relax and be yourself? And if you make a mistake, don't repeat it. It's one thing to make one mistake, and in a game, and it's like, all right, okay, I'm gonna let it go, and then learn from it and move on. As long as I don't keep repeating the same mistakes, I don't think you make a mistake is an issue. But as long as I don't keep repeating it, it's bad that way. And so, and I found myself that every time I'm calm, I'm able to make sound decisions and make the right decisions on the field. And so I think that has worked out well for me so far. And I try a lot of times when I play just to be calm and not get rushed. And I think that's one of I'd say that's one of the qualities that I have, and yeah, it's just from childhood experience and growing as a player.
So the mental aspect of the game, is that something you practiced, in training or maybe in college, or did it just click?
Well, I had to do a lot. I always prepare a lot before games, like the night before everything. I start kind of imagining, and I always it's actually because when I was young, I worked there was a sports psychologist, and she was super helpful. Where you do this thing called imagery, where you just imagine things before games, and you see yourself in a happy place and doing well and performing. So when you go on the field, it's like, all right, I've imagined this before, I can do it, and you just get into it, and you see yourself doing well. And I think the human mind is really powerful. That way, what we think of ourselves, that's what comes out, and that's how we react in some situations. And so, thinking positively most of the time, I think, helps me calm down, and when I get on the field, just be able to be myself and be able to play. Because I know that if I'm calm and if I'm able to control my emotions. My play will take over, and in the end, I'll be fine.
Moving to more of your, MLS, the start of your MLS career with the draft and so ever. Being picked number 2 overall by the Philadelphia Union and having your Georgetown teammate Keegan Rosenberry pick number 3 right behind you. I'm sure you get this question a lot, but how did Keegan Rosenberry, the connection and the chemistry from going to school together, how did that help you and him kind of transition into Major League Soccer?
It's been great. He's been a good friend since I got to Georgetown. We have a really good connection, and it's gotten to a point where even last year in college, where if I'm passing the ball to him, I don't have to look because I know exactly where he's going to be and where his moves are. And I think that has transitioned well to the MLS level, where we've played together so many times. We've played together for so many years now that we just tend to know each other well and know what each other can and cannot do. And so that really helps when, if I have to pick out a pass, and I know exactly where he's going to be or what he's going to do with the ball, I can read his body language to know what he's going to do next, and that's great for me because that helps me adjust, a second or two ahead of everyone. And so it's been a really good connection, and I'm fortunate to have someone like him, a guy that's really dedicated and a guy that's really hardworking and has worked hard for everything he's gotten in his playing career. And it's always really encouraging to have a teammate like that motivates me every day and pushes me to be a good player. And so that connection, I hope I'm able to have, or we're able to play together for a few years to come, because I'd love that, and that would be really good for me and just our partnership in general.
I got 2 more questions for you. Going back to the draft.
Yeah.
Me and you talked about this before off air.
Yeah.
But going number 2 behind Jack Harrison, and Jack Harrison's a fantastic player for New York City. Did it really matter to you whether you went number 1 or number 2?
No, it's good to go as number 1, but because what happens when you get your name is the first one that's called, you don't have to deal with all the stress that comes after. Because sitting down and knowing where you're going, it's pretty stressful. But to me, it didn't matter because I looked at it and said, hey, it doesn't affect my contract. B, am I going to get picked up by a team that's going to need me and use me and develop me as a player? And that was my concern. And then going as number 1 and all that, what if the team that had number 1 pick didn't need a player in my position and needed a striker or a winger, and so it's good to go as a top pick, but once you get into, you go with your team and you go into preseason, it's a fresh start, and doesn't matter what pick you were, you have to work your way up, and you have to do well enough to earn a spot. And so I'd say it's just a tag, and it's to me, it didn't really make any difference either in my contract or in where I ended up, because what I was looking for in the draft was to be with a team that was going to develop me as a player and was going to give me the opportunity to play. And I think I found that with the Union, and that's what I was looking for in the draft. So in the end, it didn't really make a difference.
Being a fantastic college soccer player, which you were, or you wouldn't have went number 2, you wouldn't have got all the accolades you got at Georgetown. Being one of the best players at your position in college, how different is MLS compared to college? Because I understand in college you don't have guys like David Villa and Bradley Wright Phillips and Sebastian Javinko running at you. So how did you adjust as a individual player with those guys coming at you as opposed to some kid from Creighton?
Well, the college level is good, especially when you play some of the top teams. But the thing is, college you can get away with making silly mistakes and then recovering in time, and then or you simply don't get punished for it. while here, you don't even have to make a mistake and you're getting punished because you give, strikers like Villa and Phillips and Jovinko and all those guys, time and space, and they're hitting a ridiculous shot into the back of the net. And not necessarily a mistake you make, but that's just how good people are or how good players are. And so, the level is definitely not what it was in college. And in college, whenever I made a mistake, I was able to recover easily. But it's not like that here. And it's like I have my level of concentration here has to be all the time high. While in college, you could switch off for a second and it would still be okay. And so it's just, the players are a lot better in the MLS, obviously, and the level of competition is higher. And it requires a lot mentally to be able to succeed at this level. And so that's the difference. And still, I think by the end of the season, I had adjusted well enough, but still young and still learning. And this year's still going to be a building process for me and a learning process and a year to hopefully develop into the player that I want to be.
It looks like I got time for one more question.
Yeah. Cool.
And this is more of a little bit of a fun question.
Yeah.
How good does it feel to have MLS Goalkeeper of the Year Andre Blake behind you?
It's amazing. I remember in games where I played where he made saves and I just turned around and how the heck do you say that? But it's good when you know that occasionally you have a guy that can, make those saves and kind of keep us in the game. And the best part is, and I always talk about this when people ask me about some teammates, but the best part is he's a fantastic player, but it also helps that he's a nice person. And I think that has helped me a lot in the back, especially, being there with him. And he's always really organizing and always getting us to where we need to be and just supporting the whole back line, the whole team. But man, I still don't get how the guy makes some of the saves. I don't know. I always look at him and I sit beside him in the locker room, and I always just look at him. I think maybe he's a superhuman. I don't know, but hopefully he keep. I hope he keep making those saves and because every team could use a keeper like that. He's absolutely, and I think rightly so. He deserves the award that he got.
Yeah, he's made some amazing saves. I mean, there aren't any words to describe how essential he is to the Philadelphia Union.
It's amazing. I still don't get how. His reflexes are crazy, even for a keeper. But anyways, I guess everyone has something. His I still cannot understand how it's possible sometimes, but he does it, and hopefully he keeps doing it.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having.
I just hope you come on again sometime.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wish you much success in the upcoming season and for years to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and yeah, again, thanks for having me, and I hope to be back soon.
That was Joshua Yaro. This is the World Football News Network, and as I always say here in the United States, don't score own goals.